A couple days ago, I did a hangout with Animating Rebel and the Realistic Nihilist about the concept of qualia, and the link is in the description box. YouTuber SuicideforCelluloid listened to it and wrote a restatement of my position that more intuitively captures what I'm talking about. So kudos to him, and I encourage you all to subscribe to his channel. This is his restatement. Any quote-unquote qualitative state isn't only a qualitative state. One could imagine a painting where people of culture X's eyes are drawn towards the top right corner, whereas people of culture Y's eyes are drawn towards the bottom left corner. When anyone approaches the painting, he or she tends to begin by looking at the center, and therefore at face value, they have roughly the same qualia. The difference is that there is some sort of normative pressure at work in their phenomenology that's culturally formed, leading them to move in one direction or the other. Further, that pressure is essential to the experience taken as a whole. Defining qualia as experience itself therefore becomes false. While it may be the case that there is qualia, qualia does not exhaust experience. My favorite example of the phenomenology of social norms is expressed in the experience of using a urinal. There are all sorts of normative pressures at work here that shape the experience. Any notion of just bare qualia is going to underdetermine the description of said experience taken as a whole. Further, those pressures are culturally constructed. As in China, for example, there are different norms at work with respect to urination than in America. That which is excluded by the concept of just bare qualia isn't purely abstract, nor is it qualitative in a strict sense. Think of pain. Pain has an inherently normative characteristic, but it's also something experienced. That is to say, there is a qualitative state associated with pain. Those two elements cannot be disarticulated from one another in the experience itself. This fact also violates the distinction between qualia and non-qualia. That violation can, of course, be radicalized to cover any experience. If someone had an abusive parent who always wore a red tie, perhaps at some level the color red makes that person uncomfortable. The experience of red is never, in such a case, solely the experience of redness. Rather, there is a holistic experience of red that can't be understood by taking it apart conceptually. In this example, at the phenomenological level, the experience of red and the experience of anxiety are not two things, but rather they are aspects of a whole or even indistinguishable. The breaking apart of the experience of red into these pieces is therefore unfaithful as to how things are actually experienced. Taken at that level, qualia ceases to be a self-sufficient category. There is never simply pure qualia in our experience. If you can't draw a neat line between qualia and non-qualia, however, then the category implodes. This implosion becomes especially problematic when the issue of intentionality in the Husserlian sense is introduced. Perception is always perception of something. If there is an intentional structure at work in the perception itself, then the idea that qualia is in some sense fundamental is problematized, as then there are conditions of possibility of qualia as well as elements that are considered to be conceptually distinct from it, that are in fact coextensive in any given experience. Thank you, Suicide for Celluloid.